The air hung heavy, thick with incense and fear. The scent of burning herbs mingled with the palpable tension, creating an atmosphere that was almost suffocating. Every breath taken in the grand court seemed to carry the weight of the impending judgment. Sunlight sliced through the high windows of the Sultan's court, illuminating dust motes dancing in the oppressive heat. The beams of light seemed to spotlight the gravity of the moment, casting long shadows that stretched across the ancient stone floor. Before the throne, a man knelt, his crime echoing in the whispers that snaked through the assembled throng. His head was bowed low, his shoulders trembling under the weight of his fate. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, each whisper a dagger of judgment. He had stolen, they murmured, dared to reach for what was not his. The audacity of his actions had shocked the court, and now he was to pay the ultimate price. The whispers carried tales of his crime, each retelling more embellished than the last. Now he would face the Sultan's justice, a justice known for its severity and finality. The Sultan's court was not a place for mercy. It was a place where the law was upheld with an iron fist. The Sultan, a figure draped in silks and jewels, raised a hand, silencing the whispers instantly. His presence commanded respect and fear in equal measure. The jewels on his robes caught the light, sparkling ominously as he prepared to deliver his verdict. His eyes, dark and unreadable, settled on the trembling form before him. Those eyes had seen countless judgments, and they betrayed no emotion as they assessed the man's fate. The court held its breath, waiting for the inevitable. With a slow, deliberate nod, he delivered the sentence: death by elephant. The words hung in the air, heavy and final. It was a punishment reserved for the gravest of offences, a spectacle meant to instill fear and maintain order. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, followed by a tense silence. The reality of the sentence settled over them like a shroud, and the air grew even heavier with the weight of what was to come. The prisoner, his face ashen, crumpled to the floor, his pleas for mercy lost in the suffocating atmosphere of the court. His voice, once defiant, was now a mere whisper, drowned out by the finality of his fate. The guards moved with practiced efficiency, hauling the condemned man to his feet and dragging him away. Their faces were stoic, their movements mechanical, as if they had performed this grim task countless times before. The crowd parted, their faces a mixture of morbid fascination and relief. As the path was cleared for the Sultan's most fearsome executioner, a massive war elephant. The ground seemed to tremble under the weight of the beast, its presence a stark reminder of the Sultan's absolute power. The elephant, trained for this very purpose, moved with a slow, deliberate grace, its eyes reflecting the gravity of its role in the Sultan's justice. Across the vast expanse of Asia, from the dusty plains of India to the lush jungles of Southeast Asia, elephants have commanded respect and reverence for millennia. Their sheer size and strength, coupled with their intelligence and capacity for empathy, have woven them deeply into the tapestry of human civilization. In ancient times, these majestic creatures were not merely symbols of power, they were power personified. From the battlefield to the royal court, elephants played pivotal roles. Their immense size and strength made them formidable weapons of war, capable of breaking enemy lines and striking terror into the hearts of their foes. Off the battlefield, their intelligence and trainability made them invaluable assets for tasks such as logging, transportation, and even entertainment. But it was their association with royalty, their role as the living embodiments of kings and emperors, that truly cemented their place in the hierarchy of power. A shiver ran down my spine, a cold sweat clinging to me despite the searing heat of the midday sun. The crowd around me buzzed with anticipation, their morbid curiosity palpable. We had gathered in the public square, a vast open space baked hard by the relentless sun, to witness the Sultan's justice. They brought the condemned man, a convicted thief, to the center of the square. He was pale, his eyes wide with terror, his body trembling uncontrollably. The guards, their faces impassive, forced him to his knees and bound his hands behind his back. Then, with a trumpeting roar that seemed to shake the very ground beneath our feet, the elephant appeared. Death by elephant, as I witnessed that day, was not a singular, uniform act. It was a multifaceted and deeply disturbing form of execution, one that varied greatly depending on the region, the era, and the specific circumstances surrounding the condemned individual. It was a chillingly versatile form of execution. adapted and refined across different regions and eras. Each culture that employed this method brought its own unique twist to the grim proceedings, ensuring that the condemned would meet their end in a manner that was both terrifying and memorable. Sometimes, the elephant, its massive foot trained to deliver crushing blows, would simply trample the condemned, ending their life in a swift, brutal display of power. The sheer weight and force of the elephant's foot would ensure that death came quickly, though not without a final, horrifying moment of realization for the victim. Other times, the method was slower, more agonizing. The elephant might be trained to prolong the suffering of the condemned, using its immense strength and size to inflict a series of injuries that would eventually lead to death. This method was often reserved for those whose crimes were deemed particularly heinous, or for those whom the ruler wished to make an example of. Elephants, their tusks sharpened to deadly points, were trained to gore and toss their victims, inflicting excruciating pain before delivering the final fatal blow. This method was particularly gruesome, as the victim would be subjected to a series of violent and painful attacks before finally succumbing to their injuries. And in some cases, the elephants were used to dismember the condemned, their immense strength making a gruesome spectacle of the execution. The sight of an elephant tearing apart a human body was meant to serve as a powerful deterrent to those who might consider defying the ruling power. The specific method often depended on the severity of the crime, or perhaps more chillingly, the whim of the ruler. In some cases, the ruler might choose a particularly brutal method to send a message to the populace, demonstrating the consequences of defiance in the most graphic and unforgettable manner possible. Regardless of the method, the message was clear. Defiance against the ruling power would be met with swift and merciless retribution. The use of elephants in these executions was not just a means of punishment, but a powerful tool of psychological warfare, ensuring that the memory of such executions would linger in the minds of the populace for generations to come. Section 5. Beyond the physical elephants as symbols of authority, the use of elephants in executions, brutal as it may seem, transcended mere physical violence. It was a carefully orchestrated spectacle, a symbolic act designed to instill fear and maintain order. The elephant, in this macabre performance, became a living, breathing representation of the ruler's power. Its immense size and strength mirrored the absolute authority of the king or sultan, while its intelligence and obedience underscored the unquestionable nature of their rule. By wielding the power of life and death over such a magnificent creature, the ruler asserted their own dominance over not just their subjects, but over the natural world itself. Section 6. The shifting sands of power, from spectacle to abolition. As centuries passed, the sands of time brought with them changing tides in the political landscape of Asia. The grand empires that once stood tall began to see their foundations shake. The majestic temples and bustling cityscapes witnessed the rise and fall of dynasties, each leaving an indelible mark on the region's history. The once absolute power of kings and sultans began to wane, challenged by both internal and external forces. Rebellions and uprisings became more frequent as common people and rival factions sought to claim their piece of power. The courts, once symbols of unchallenged authority, became arenas of political intrigue and shifting allegiances. With the arrival of European colonial powers, the traditional power structures were further disrupted, and with this disruption came new perspectives on governance, justice, and ultimately on the use of elephants in executions. The sight of European ships docking at ancient ports marked the beginning of a new era, one where foreign influence would reshape the very fabric of Asian societies. European colonial powers, while no strangers to brutality themselves, often viewed the use of elephants in executions as barbaric and uncivilized. Their own judicial systems, though harsh, were based on different principles and practices. The colonial officials, in their discussions and deliberations, often clashed with traditional Asian methods, leading to a complex interplay of cultural and legal norms. They sought to impose their own systems of law and order, systems that, while often harsh, generally did not include the use of animals for capital punishment. The European approach to justice, with its courts and law enforcement, began to take root, gradually replacing the age-old traditions that had governed Asian societies for centuries. This, combined with a growing awareness of animal welfare in some quarters, led to a decline in the use of elephants for executions. The majestic creatures, once symbols of royal power and instruments of fear, began to be seen in a new light. The changing attitudes towards animal welfare, influenced by both local and foreign ideas, marked the beginning of a shift towards more humane practices. The spectacle of elephants in executions slowly faded into history, replaced by a growing movement towards abolition and the protection of these magnificent animals. Section 7. Echoes of the Past. The enduring legacy of elephant executions. Though the practice of elephant execution has long since faded into the annals of history, its legacy continues to echo through time. The visceral imagery of these events, passed down through generations in oral histories and documented in the writings of those who witnessed them, serves as a chilling reminder of the capacity for cruelty that can exist within human societies. Yet beyond the horror, there is a deeper, more nuanced story to be told. The history of elephant executions compels us to confront uncomfortable truths about the nature of power, the complexities of cultural practices, and the evolving relationship between humans and the natural world. Section 8. Conclusion. A stark reminder from history. The story of elephant executions in ancient Asia stands as a stark reminder of the immense power these magnificent creatures have held over human civilization for centuries. It's a power that can be wielded for good or for ill, a power that demands respect and understanding. As we continue to grapple with the challenges of our own time, let us remember the lessons of the past and strive to build a future where both humanity and the natural world can coexist in harmony. By understanding the historical context of such practices, we gain a deeper appreciation for the complexities of human history and the ever-evolving relationship between our species and the animal kingdom.